Horrible incident in North London today. Let's get a reaction from the police.
A 45-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder and remains in custody following a checkup at the local hospital. He has a history of serious violence and mental health issues, and that investigation continues. Let me say a few words about what this was. Let me be clear. This is an attack on one community. An attack on one community is an attack on all London's communities. This was an attack on Londoners. It is an attack on British Jews. Too many Jewish people in this country feel they have to make choices that no other Briton ever has to make. They have to make choices about how they dress, where they go, or how visibly they live their lives. That's completely unacceptable and has gone on for far too long.
Jewish people having to make choices about how they dress. I heard people on the radio today saying that they were concerned about being visibly Jewish whilst outside because of attacks like this. I'm going to play a clip that I may have to stop. This is the attacker being apprehended. I won't show you all of it, but I will show you until the point where he's apprehended. I know maybe that's actually a photo of the arrest. We've got footage of the arrest, but I can't show you all of it. Let's have a little look. They're struggling with him. They get him to the ground. And I think shortly after this, there's some kicks to the head. Some people say, oh, that's very excessive. Do you really need to go that hard when you're apprehending someone? But if someone is armed with a weapon and has attempted to take the lives of two people already, I think you're well within your rights to be very firm until you have that person under control. If you've never been in a situation, if you've never worked in law enforcement or security, I don't think you know what it's like to restrain someone using minimal force when lives are at risk. But to the untrained eye, it always looks like, oh, why are you being so heavy-handed? I think if someone has already attempted to take someone's life, then there's no such thing as being too heavy-handed. I'm just wary of how much of this I can show, but that is the arrest taking place, and I think shortly afterwards there were some blows to the head. Absolutely horrible, and it would seem that it's again a community that has been attacked just for being who they are, for no other reason than that. And the police officer mentioned mental health problems. Some people get very upset when the authorities mention mental health when talking about incidents like this, because we're very keen to blame someone. We want to feel like we can have someone to be angry at. You're being told, well, this person had mental health problems, like an excuse. It's not an excuse, but it might be an explanation of why that happened. Still, why did that person with mental health issues target this community? What are they hearing that's making them channel their anger or their behavior that they can't control? They've still targeted a certain community with that, and we have to address that. Another clip, maybe we shouldn't show all of it, but this is the scene in Golders Green today, and it's not the first time in recent times that there's been such attacks on the Jewish community, and some people are saying that they don't feel safe being visibly Jewish out in public. And you should never have to disguise your identity because of who you are, out of fear of coming under attack. It's very sad when that happened. Still, we don't know the motive, but if it is someone with mental health issues, it may not be one particular motive, but there will be a reason that they lashed out in this way. And of course, it will be politicized, and I believe that it's wrong to equate Jewish people anywhere in the world with what's going on in the Middle East, but that will always come up in conversation, and the bottom line will often be, well, Jewish people are not safe in this country, we have to go and live in the Middle East. But I heard a call to LBC today, a Jewish caller who was making the point that, well, Jewish people might not feel safe anywhere in the world. And even if you go and live in the Holy Land, it's not exactly a safe place either at the moment. So maybe relocating is not the answer to living with hate, living under threat. There was a reaction to the incident. Here's a protest in North London. And they're specifically calling out Keir Starmer as someone who hasn't done enough. Is that the famous rabbi in the front row there? Is he in London? I could be wrong. Okay, they're calling to ban the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard from Iran. Would that make a difference? Would that have prevented this attacker? We're saying that he has a history of mental health issues. He may be an anti-Semitic bigot as well. Would banning the IRGC have made a difference to him, do you think? Or is it just something that should be done anyway, regardless of the violent incidents on the street? You're running around Britain organising terrorist attacks. Surely they're not saying that Keir Starmer is organising this. Keir Starmer can't win. On the one side, he has described himself not as a Zionist, but as a supporter of Zionism. And he is married into a Jewish family. And it would seem that he is a supporter. Remember when he said that Israel had the right to defend itself, and he went as far as condoning the turning off of electricity in Gaza. Yet he hasn't gone far enough for people on the other side who want him to ban the IRGC and presumably do something to protect people that are at risk from anti-Semitic attacks. There was another stabbing at a protest just a few weeks ago. An Iranian man was unfortunately stabbed, and that would seem to have been a politically motivated stabbing, and we didn't hear much about it on the mainstream media, on the news. There's also another huge story about Keir Starmer at the moment that we're also not hearing about it. And I've made these points online. I mentioned about the stabbing of the Iranian man at the protest, and someone replied back, well, what about the other stabbing? There was another stabbing of an activist on the other side of that argument, and that also was not mentioned in the media. So I suppose whatever you think is the most important at the time, there will always be a different focus, and it's very easy to say, oh, what about this? What about that? I try to avoid whataboutery if I can, because I think it's a very weak argument, but it's so tempting when the media, I mean, who is the media? We can be the media. We are the alternative media. But the mainstream media, the main channels, focus on certain stories and not others, give a political spin to certain stories and not others. People have also made the point that there is a hell of a lot of knife crime in the UK, in London especially, and hardly any of it gets covered in the press. But because of the background of the people in the story today and the presumed motivation behind it, then this story is all over the news. But I can understand that. And I think a politically motivated or ethnically, religiously motivated hate attack, it somehow is more it just is more newsworthy than gang on gang violence. Maybe you don't think that should be the case, but that is the way that newspapers, that news is reported. They say in journalism that you have to look for the man bites dog story. Dogs bite people every day, and that wouldn't be worthy of news. But if a man bites a dog, now you've got a news story. If a stabbing incident happens and there is a political motivation behind it, or someone is attacked because of their ethnicity, well, it has certain implications, and it will just be more newsworthy. As they say, one incident is a tragedy, but 1,000 are a statistic. The other story to talk about is the royal visit. Prince Charles has met up with Donald Trump. Let's have a little listen to Prince Charles, King Charles. Come on.
This year, of course, also marks the 25th anniversary of 9/11. This atrocity was a defining moment for America, and your pain and shock were felt around the whole world. During my visit to New York, my wife and I will again pay our respects to the victims, the families, and the bravery shown in the face of terrible loss. We stood with you then, and we stand with you now in solemn remembrance of a day that shall never be forgotten.
Okay, he's paying his respects for 9/11. That always gets a round of applause, doesn't it?
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, when NATO invoked Article 5 for the first time, and the United Nations Security Council was united in the face of terror, we answered the call together, as our people have done so for more than a century, shoulder to shoulder, through 2 world wars, the Cold War, Afghanistan, and moments that have defined our shared security. Today, Mr. Speaker, that same unyielding resolve is needed for the defense of Ukraine and her most courageous people.
Ukraine also getting a round of applause. He does speak very well, doesn't he, King Charles? I mean, he's been brought up to do so. And he mentions Ukraine. I think the British royal family are distantly related to the Romanovs, the dynasty that was done away with by the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. I mean, they're all distant cousins, aren't they? I mean, he's got German background. His father was born in Greece, Corfu, but Germanic background. And they are all interlinked and related, but it's interesting that they go back as far as the Romanovs. I wonder how he feels about the Russian occupation of Ukraine. He's saying the right thing there on the camera. Is his heart in it? We don't know. Have a little bit more from King Charles. He's getting a long round of applause.
In the immediate aftermath of 9/11, when
Oh, we've heard that. We've heard that. We know about 9/11. Sorry, I do have another clip of Charles. What did he say here?
the Christian faith is a firm anchor and daily inspiration that guides us, not only personally, that guides us not only personally, but together as members of our community. Having devoted a large part of my life to interfaith relationships and greater understanding, it is that faith in the triumph of light over darkness which I have found confirmed countless times. Through it, I am inspired by the profound respect that develops as people.
King Charles. Is he a Muslim? A lot of people suspect that he is. And he says things like, rather than being the defender of the faith, defender of faiths. And he mentions other religions. Some very traditionalist people get a bit upset about that the king should be purely a Christian and not be open-minded to other faiths. It does get a little bit ecumenical when you start saying all faiths, and people can be very annoyed by people that want all faiths to come together, and there's no one better than another. But if you really are a Christian and the head of the Church of England, King Charles is the head of the church in England, he should say, well, we are a Christian country. I think that Britain is a Christian country. It's a majority Christian country, or it was originally. But atheism or secularism is the fastest growing religious belief, apparently. And I think that's a shame. I think we should remain close to our spirituality, and whether that's Muslim or Christian, whatever it is, I think you've got to have God in your life somewhere, don't you? King Charles. And Danny Boy is saying, Christian faith is a dying art in the UK. It's only preached when there's an EDL march. Shameful, really. Well, that is a shame if that's the case, that the only time you hear about people expressing a Christian identity is an EDL march. But maybe Christianity is quite a humble faith, quite meek. Let the meek inherit the earth. Turn the other cheek. And you might think, well, that's why it's dying out. But I think that's why Christianity will always be around and why it's lasted 2,000 years. Because if you always pick up a sword and try and fight, you will end up losing. And I think that the Christian faith has done so much. The followers of Jesus have done so much good and bad. And let's hope that they can do more good than bad. Mr. Sapp is saying faith, Christianity is what gives you guys civilization, and that's a fact. Do you think so? Do you think that the West became so powerful and flourished and bloomed with technology and culture because of Christianity? Is the teachings of Jesus what turned the Roman pagans into believers and people of morality? Or was Europe and the West fertile ground for a philosophy like that, and it only spread there because the people there, the culture there, were ready to embrace it? Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion. It started in the Middle East and it spread to the West. We talk about the East becoming westernized, but the West was actually becoming Easternized as these ideas from the Middle East seeped into Europe, as the Emperor Constantine embraced the Christian religion. It's always amazing when an emperor or a leader embraces a faith and then the community follow. There is a conspiracy theory, and I don't know how true it is, about the origins of the European Jewish people, and that there was a king in an empire at one stage or another who decided to embrace a religion, and he was considering Islam, Christianity. He embraced Judaism and Jewish people. His subjects converted to Judaism. How true it is, I don't know. And it might just be a story. But there's other examples out there of weren't the Mongols that conquered Muslim people, then became Muslim themselves. And of course the Mughal Empire takes its name from the Mongols. The Mongols became the Mughal, the great Indian subcontinent Islamic empire. Mr. Sapp is saying, absolutely, what other country did better than the West? There's 52 Muslim countries. Compare them to America, and who is the civilization really go to? Well, it depends what you mean by civilization. America has been at war for something like 200 out of the last 250 years. It is constantly at war. It is at war right now, tonight. Donald Trump kidnapped the president of Venezuela, and then he attacked Iran and blew up a girls' school, and the list goes on. Is that really what you mean by civilization? Answers in the chat. And Mr. Sapp is saying only Jesus is king. Mr. Trump is saying Russell Collins is the name of the demo you wanted to identify. Okay, thank you. Thank you for always bringing me the right information. Mr. Sapp, America has women's rights. America allows you to be a homosexual, although I don't agree with the lifestyle. I don't think they deserve death. Okay, so you don't agree with it, but you're glad that there's no death penalty for homosexuality. Good for you, Mr. Sapp. I don't think that people should be put to death for their sexuality. Glad to hear that we're on the same page. And I guess you're suggesting that countries that have a death penalty for something like that are not as civilized, even though you seem to agree with it morally. You just don't agree with punishing them to that extent. So it's not about morality, it's about what we do with the morality. In the Islamic Sharia, the law, there is, I think, provision for execution for adultery, be it same sex uh, or mixed arrangement. But isn't it something like with 4 witnesses? Who is going to do something like that with 4 witnesses? In practice, it would be kind of inconceivable that that would ever actually happen. And the death penalty was common across all, I would think, almost all cultures worldwide 1,000 years ago. The fact that we've moved away from that is a good thing. I think we should move further away from that and not execute people for things that they've done. You have to keep law and order in society, and you have to keep your society safe and moral. I don't think taking someone's life is the way to do that. I think we've all moved forward. America still has the death penalty in many states, as does Iran, as does many other countries. I think we should move away from that. Doesn't mean that I agree with other things. Danny Boy is saying, what is your religion? Well, I never really mention it on here, but you can kind of probably work it out. And we mentioned who was in the demo. So that was not Rabbi Shmuley, and I'm sorry for mistakenly suggesting that it might have been, but I got confused. Let's hear from Keir Starmer. Remember, there's a big news story about him that's going under the radar at the moment as well.
You've repeatedly said it's not our war. The problem is, as you already mentioned, it is affecting all of us, isn't it? And people are desperately worried about that. So you're chairing this crisis cabinet committee tomorrow. I wondered if you could just level with the British public. You know, are you worried about fuel and food shortages? Is that why you're chairing that committee?
There is going to be an impact on the UK. There already is. And I think it's really important I level with the public that we are doing everything we can to get the Strait of Hormuz open, because obviously that is vital in terms of minimising the impact. But I don't want anybody to think that once the strait is open, that that's the end of the damage. It'll go on longer than that. And that's why we've got almost daily meetings of ministers and officials looking at how we manage the impact. At the moment, we're confident about supply. We have reopened the CO2 plant in the northeast. Airlines are telling us that they've got enough jet fuel at the moment.
But when you say at the moment, for how long?
Well, we monitor this all of the time, and they have told us so far that they've got the supplies that they need.
But summer holidays could be in jeopardy.
Well, that's why we manage it. I think what we'll see how long the conflict goes on. I can see that if there's more impact, people might change their habits, where they go on holiday this year, what they're buying in the supermarket, that sort of thing.
So you are, I mean, really your message to the public is don't panic, but actually there may be some shortages of food and fuel.
Don't panic, but we chose not to get involved in this war. That was the right thing to do, but we must protect the British people from the impact of it. That's
Some of the conspiracy theory community, the conspiracy-minded people, are already alleging that the next lockdown will be due to lack of fuel, that you won't be able to afford to fill up your car. Never mind, you won't be able to afford to go on holiday. If the Straits of Hormuz are not opened up, and this is the conflict in Iran that's led to this, we will be left with a situation where fuel is just so expensive that we cannot rely on it. We cannot move. You will be walking to work. How do you feel about that? How does the possibility of that situation sit with you? I wish I was one of those people that just didn't think about it, that was completely oblivious. Ignorance is bliss, isn't it? But when you're watching the news, as I assume most of you that watch this channel are also of that mindset of being informed about what's going on, and the possibility that we will be faced with another lockdown situation and the damage that the last one did. I know a lot of people kind of secretly enjoyed it, and at the beginning it was all new and it seemed a bit exciting and fun that, well, we're going to be staying at home, we're going to be heroes by staying at home, and that's how we're going to protect each other. But the knock-on effect, the devastating impact on schools, on education, on businesses, on the financial situation, it was horrific. Could we be headed towards another situation like that? Because this guy wants us involved with a war, because we're going to use our airspace for American attacks. And Iran have already said that ships that are not, from countries that are not involved, will be allowed through the Straits of Hormuz. But maybe Donald Trump is going to win the war, and then he's going to shut the straits himself, and he's going to completely reverse card the situation on them and charge other people to come through rather than being charged themselves. But I just wish we would. I don't want to be anywhere near any international conflict. Can't we just be a country that keeps itself to itself? I was hopeful that maybe King Charles would talk some sense into Donald Trump, but Donald Trump doesn't listen to anyone other than himself. But it was interesting to hear him tapping into his British heritage, and he's from a Scottish origin, and he was talking about how my mother loved Prince Charles. She really liked Prince Charles. And he just sort of says whatever's on his mind at the time. I wonder what King Charles made of all that, because so many Americans have a British background, whether it's a few generations ago or hundreds of years ago. It's interesting to see how they've gone in a completely different direction over there. And I think because the so-called WASPs, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, are the majority in America, that's almost seen as being normal American. They don't even have to say or acknowledge that they have an English background. They just say, I'm American through and through. And I saw a debate recently with some white American nationalist claiming that he was Native American, white European, probably English or German origin. And he said he was debating Mehdi Hassan. And Mehdi Hassan is an American citizen. And he was debating this gentleman, and they were calling him, "You're an Indian." And he said, "Well, I'm not Indian. I'm actually American. I've got an American passport." I mean, he grew up in England, Mehdi Hassan. He's of I think, Indian Muslim origin, possibly Shia Muslim origin, but he's got an American citizenship. And this American nationalist right-winger was very dismissive of that. That's just a piece of paper. That doesn't mean anything. He's clearly the descendant of immigrants himself, because who went to America. But he considers whites in America to be native. And if you've watched Gangs of New York, you remember nativism was this idea that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that arrived 300 years ago were native, and the Catholic Irish that arrived 200 years ago were foreigners, were immigrants, were strangers, were not welcome. And when Mehdi Hassan said to this American, "Well, you don't look very Native American to me," he said, I think you're confusing native with indigenous. Before the whites arrived, there were indigenous people, and as he mentioned, who migrated from Asia, which is true. We all came from somewhere. Didn't the Native Americans, as we would call them, arrive via the Bering Straits and crossed over into Alaska, down through Canada, all the way down through Panama and into South America? He was making a distinction between the word native and the word indigenous. I thought they were just two words for the same thing. But when you frame it that way, it is interesting to hear Native Americans, or indigenous as he called them, being referred to as arriving from Asia, which is technically true. But again, if you go all the way back, we're far enough. We came from Africa, didn't we? Hassan is saying Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar all have free health care, education, and no homelessness. Good point, Hassan. Where is your healthcare? Where is your civilization if you don't have access to free healthcare for people that need it in America? As George Galloway says, if a paramedic finds you lying in the street in the US, he has to feel for your wallet before he feels for your pulse. How is that civilized? I think people that look at America through an American lens, they just consider whatever their country has as being civilization. Maybe you don't think that the clean and tidy streets of Saudi Arabia, where a shopkeeper can leave his shop and go for lunch and come back in an hour without fearing anyone stealing anything, maybe you don't think that is civilized. And he's mentioned Saudi, UAE, and Qatar. They're all kingdoms, aren't they? Is there a king of Qatar? Yeah. These are the kingdoms of Arabia. America, you had a king 200 years ago or so, and you didn't want to have a king anymore. And look where it got you. We're broadcasting on 2 channels, by the way, here on Lessons for Life. If you're enjoying it, I really hope you will join us again. The phone number is there if you want to say anything to me, 07886 993 784. You can send me a voice note on WhatsApp or whatever you want to do. It's +44 if you are outside the UK. And over on Sarah Dardasha, which is originally primarily a Yemeni YouTube channel, hence the Yemeni scarf. We are also broadcasting live as well, but that is Sarah Dardasha's channel. So do get involved, whether tonight or another night. I always welcome people that want to contribute. Gary Warren is saying, I'll never convert. Convert to what, Gary? I hope you're happy with who you are and what you are. No one's forcing you to do anything. We respect everybody's beliefs on here. We're not trying to inflict one opinion or one perspective or another on anyone. And Gary is saying 100%. Oh, thank you, Gary. Glad to have you watching. And some people don't refer to the word convert. They like to say revert, as in going back to the original human inclination, which is to worship one God. Gary Warren is saying, I won't be paying extra tax either. I don't know what country you live in currently, Gary, or how much tax you pay at the moment. Perhaps you want to be paying less tax than you do. And Gary's saying, nor will I be a dhimmi. Okay, Gary's talking about the status of non-Muslims who live within a Muslim state, and dhimmi refers to protected people, the people who are protected, who pay a tax called the jizya, and we can probably talk about that another night, Gary. But I can understand that you wouldn't want to do that, and I hope that no one will ever force you to do so. Some of these things, maybe they were for a different time, just like slavery was around 1,000 years ago, and gradually we have done away with it in most countries, and I think that's a good thing, and I hope we never go back to it anywhere in the world. Very sadly, there are some countries that still practice it. Philip is saying the American people need to stand up and remove Trump and MAGA. Well, you get an election every 4 years in America, don't you? Whether you like it or not, whether the president is doing a good job or a bad job. In the UK, election terms are usually 5 years, but we can often trigger an election prior to that. Like if there's a vote of no confidence, or very often a party will replace their leader and you end up with a new prime minister, kind of like when we had Rishi Sunak. He wasn't elected at the ballot box by the British people, but he became the leader of the Conservative Party, so he became the prime minister at the time. But in America, it's very much you've got 4 years, and that's it, unless you can impeach someone along the way. And of course, unfortunately, anyone who's the president of America is at risk of assassination, aren't they? Very high risk of that. As Donald Trump said, a lot of very influential people have assassination attempts. He was quite proud of the fact that someone has tried to bump him off 3 times now. Is it real? Do you believe it? Or has he fixed it to try and make himself look good? And Philip is saying they can use the 25th Amendment to get rid quicker. Okay, so there is scope in the American Constitution to get rid of a bad president. I didn't know that. And that's great knowledge, Philip, that you know that that's the 25th Amendment. I know the First Amendment was I don't know what the First Amendment is. The Second Amendment is gun rights, isn't it? The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. The Fifth Amendment is the right to remain silent. What are all these other amendments? And the 25th one is apparently the one that you can use to get rid of a bad president. But the Constitution is meant to be there to protect the rights of the American people. And it's such a sacred document to them. But it's been amended so many times. So maybe if you don't like something, you could just make another amendment. We can have the 26th Amendment, 27th. I don't know how high it goes. In the UK, we don't have a constitution. We have the Magna Carta, which everyone learns about in history class, and it was signed over in Runnymede, and it means the big document, Magna, magnificent, charter, and that enshrined our rights, but no one's really got a copy of it on the wall in England. Danny is asking a question. Let's get his question up there. Why are a portion of... That's interesting. Google or YouTube won't let me put the comment on the screen. I'm trying to, it won't let me, but I'll read it out. Why are a portion of Muslims trying to push for England to change the flag? If they're so offended, why don't they leave and live in a Muslim country? That's a good question, Danny boy. I've never met anyone that's pushing for the flag to be changed. I don't know where you've got that perception from, but maybe there are people like that. I've never met them, and you could argue that if people are not Christian, they don't and most people now in England are not Christian. I think that's a bad thing, sadly. But if most people are not Christian, maybe the fact that the flag is a cross makes them feel that they don't really identify with it. But look, it's part of history. This was a majority Christian country at one point. It's understandable that the cross would be on the flag. I don't think that England needs a new flag. I don't think the UK needs a new flag. Ireland, which could unite and become unified once again, the Irish flag, the green, white and orange, is a very inclusive flag that is meant to signify peace between two communities. But if there was a united Ireland, you could argue that a worthwhile compromise might be for the Irish people to choose a new flag if that Irish tricolour didn't resonate with some of the community. I'm thinking of people of a unionist background. If you want to persuade them of the merits of a united Ireland, what kind of compromise are you willing to make? So maybe the Irish flag might have to change in the future. I don't see the English or the British flag changing. I hope not. And Odin, who's always welcome here, and is saying BlackRock took over for Serco in 2019 when my father was tortured to the end of his life and my identity was stolen. Goodness me, that is quite shocking. Cry Schneider is requesting, could you please also remove Friedrich Merz from Germany? We would be delighted. Okay, is it not Angela Merkel in Germany anymore? I'm so out of touch with what's going on in Germany. But Germany's done quite well, haven't they, over the years, along with Japan. Remember when Germany and Japan lost the Second World War and then became world leaders at everything and the best in manufacturing and technology? Was it the fact that they were forbidden from making weapons and ammunition that they actually put their mind to doing creative things rather than trying to hurt other people? Hassan saying Angela Merkel was years ago. Entschuldigen Sie bitte. I'm sorry, I am out of touch with Deutschland, but I do speak a little bit of German. The new Pope announced who the God's new people are. Unfortunately, they can't drive or make any kind of sense at all. That comes from Odin. Okay, so we've mentioned before about the tribes of Israel and who are the chosen people. There is an argument within Christianity that the new chosen people, the new Israel, are the Christians and no longer the Jewish people. If that's your dogma, well, that's up to you. Danny Boy saying there are a lot of good people from different backgrounds and different religious beliefs, Christian, Jewish or Muslim. I don't care. I can get on with anyone, but, and it's a big but, in case you, it's very, oh no, that's a different comment. Danny, we're waiting for your response. He's saying he can get on with anyone, but, is that, I'm not being racist, but, Odin did say, in case you can't afford to lose your life properly, a Hindu couldn't survive in the Sahara Desert without trees for cremation. Therefore, regardless of religious belief, there is a geographical reason for burial types. I see what you mean. So where you live will have an influence on what rules your religion says. If you perhaps live in an area where meat was not good for you, maybe your religion would say don't eat meat, or maybe certain meat not good for you, or maybe the blood in the meat which carries the diseases, maybe your religion will say cut the neck and let the blood drain out so that you don't catch these diseases. Hassan is replying to Odin, very interesting, since the Male Empire transcended Scandinavia, or the Mali Empire transcended Scandinavia in the 1200s. Search Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived. And Odin saying it's called Viking shipbuilders, and there was a Viking coin that had Arabic script on it. If you've ever seen that. Chris is saying that Islam is incompatible. Not all cultures are equal. Okay, Chris, which one is your favourite? Chris is saying humanity and spirituality, Islam is incompatible. Well, there's many different forms of Islam, aren't there? And you might have only encountered the brands that don't appear compatible, as you say. And Odin is mentioning overpopulation and a labour shortage is a hell of a thing to suffer from. Spiritual empathy grows marijuana indoors just to complain about power outages or fires created by them, along with the dead firemen. Okay. And Hassan is saying the Chinese were building ships long before Scandinavia. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. The Viking longboats, this is where Russia got their name from. The Rus means the people that were rowing. And the origin story of the Russian people is that they are a mix of Slavic people from Eastern Europe and Scandinavian, Germanic, Viking people that came in the longboats and that were rowing. But Russia is it's a continent, really, isn't it, Russia? If you look at Vladimir Putin, I was studying his face the other day. Did you see the clip of him mistakenly walking past a blind woman in some kind of ceremony, procession, and they pointed out, oh, you missed this lady, and he went back and he took her hand and he kissed her on the cheek. They always like to portray him as very human in these pro-Russian videos that I like to watch. But just watching Vladimir Putin, he doesn't look like a white man. He's not a European. I know he's got fair skin, white skin, but his facial features, his phenotype, is not that of a white European. It's something very Eastern about his visage. And I had a good Russian friend of mine years ago that said, "We're Russian people. We're not European. Part of our country is in Europe. Most of our country is in Asia, and there's definitely a lot of mixed cultures and heritage out there." And Odin is saying the hummingbird saved the design of a train in China or Japan. Okay, don't know about that. Fionn Barrow Locher, Finbar Locher, Irish name. You are so wrong. Who's wrong, Finbar, and what are they wrong about? I would love if you would specify. We do like to be corrected on here. And he's saying visage. Do you not like the word visage, Finbar? Visage meows. Okay, what a very Irish expression. Which county are you from, Finbar? And we've got Odin saying, thank God you can't build planes without rivets, or they would really fly. Okay. I don't know about planes or aerodynamics. We talked about the moon landing, or it wasn't a moon landing, was it? It was a moon visit. They flew around the back of the moon. Why haven't we gone to live on the moon yet? Why aren't all these descendants of the people that went to America going on to the next stage? I thought that was the whole idea, and that the reason why American people are so outgoing and ambitious, because they're descendant of people that got up and went. They left Europe and went to the new world across the Atlantic. And if you believe it, they were the first people on the moon when it was one small step. But of course, the Russians were the first in space, weren't they? Yuri Gagarin. And no one disputes the fact that the Russians made it into space. Everyone disputes the Americans landing on the moon when they had to go one better and beat the Russians during the Cold War, the space race. But no one questions whether Russia really went to space. Odin is saying you need a college or military degree in order to care. So we hire for education over experience. Yet nobody works in a field they studied, so nobody has any idea what they are actually doing. Maybe that's the problem. And he's also saying term limits doesn't fix the fact that you can't fire someone for not doing their job. It keeps everyone brand new and clueless. Yeah, well, in Britain, every few, I don't know if it's months or years, they reshuffle the cabinet, and you end up having someone who's never done anything to do with agriculture being the Minister of Agriculture, and someone that's never been in a school, the Minister of Education. But I believe in other countries, you've got people that specify in their niche, in their area of expertise. And Odin's saying everyone's going to need a doctor. Yeah, I really hope that I never want to spread doom and gloom on this channel. All right, I want to keep it positive. I want you to believe that we can all have a great future, and there's not going to be doom and gloom. I think it's in our hands. We don't have to go to these wars. We don't have to hate each other. We don't have to fight with each other. Okay, we don't need to be broken down and split into groups. So please, let's stick together. And if another lockdown happens due to lack of fuel or whatever else, let's find a way through together. Odin's saying humans are a myth, a fairy tale. Well, Odin, aren't you named after a mythical god? Isn't Odin a god of something or other? I need to look it up. Look, we're a fairy tale, but we're here. Whether you believe Adam and Eve was literally true or the greatest metaphor of all time, we are all Bani Adam, the children of Adam, from that red earth clay that God formed you from. Dam is the red of the blood. Adam, we are Bani Adam, mankind. Odin's saying we need an alien intervention, considering it requires superpowers to communicate with humans. Well, maybe the aliens were here. Maybe they were the Elohim, the sons of God that came down. God doesn't have a son. It's a metaphor. Finbar, I'm a metaphor too. Thank you very much, Finbar. I appreciate you tuning in. It's been Lessons for Life on a Wednesday night. We'll do it all again soon, God willing. We were here, and we are gone. Laters. Thanks, guys. And thank you, Sarah Dardetta.